It's January 10th, 2026. Welcome to yes2hellwith.com. This is a summation of today's video. People will lose because they respond to IRS presumptions as if those presumptions were proof. By reacting, explaining, or getting emotional, they fix the agency's missing foundation and strengthen the agency's position. Control comes from recognizing presumption, preserving a clean record, and forcing authority to explain itself before anything is said. Now, when the IRS sends a letter, most people believe the danger lies in choosing the wrong words. That belief itself is the trap. The real danger is responding before understanding what the letter actually is. An IRS letter usually does not arrive with proof. It arrives with a presumption that an obligation exists, that authority applies, and that the agency is entitled to an answer. Most people do not recognize this as a presumption. They believe the letter itself is the proof. It isn't. Because they don't see the presumption, they react, they explain, they deny, they declare, they justify. Not because they believe the IRS is right, but because the letter feels official, urgent, and authoritative. Fear pushes movement before understanding. This is where people unknowingly cure the defect. In plain terms, curing the defect means fixing the government's problem for them. The IRS letter was missing something essential, proof that it actually has authority over the person for the obligation claimed. When someone responds as if that authority already exists, they supply what was missing by treating the presumption as real. Once that happens, the process moves forward as though the foundation was sound all along. Most people are not responding because they think the presumption is settled. They respond because they never saw presumption in the first place. Now consider what happens when emotion enters the response. When someone replies with accusations, outrage, threats, declarations, or long explanations, that material becomes part of the administrative record. Records are not about fairness or truth. They document participation. Emotional language signals engagement. Engagement validates the process. Validation allows escalation. Noise expands the record. Expanded records increase discretion. Increased discretion strengthens the agency's position. That is how emotion quietly confirms the presumption and advances the IRS process at the same time. A clean record does the opposite. It avoids the unnecessary explanation, avoids emotional language, avoids conclusions, and avoids volunteering information. Clean records preserve uncertainty where the burden belongs on the agency. They limit what the system can rely on later. This is also why silence preserves leverage. Silence does not mean surrender. Silence means refusing to advance the process until its foundation is exposed. When nothing is supplied prematurely, the presumption remains just that, a presumption, an unproven placeholder. Silence keeps the burden where it started. When engagement does occur, questions matter more than statements. Statements assert conclusions and invite rebuttal or dismissal. Questions, however, require explanation, and explanation is costly for authority or the IRS. Here is the structural truth most people miss. The party required to explain is the party losing control. Authority survives best when it is assumed. The moment authority must explain itself clearly and on the record, it becomes vulnerable to limitation, contradiction, or failure. That is why administrative systems rely on confidence, urgency, and compliance rather than demonstration. This is also why I have not given you a model letter in response to the IRS. A letter written without sequencing discipline, even a well-intentional and rational one, can cause serious harm if it is sent out of order. Saying the right thing at the wrong time still advances the wrong process. Now, let me end this with a simple example that makes presumption unmistakable. When I was a boy, my family was very poor. Food was scarce. When my mother made baked potatoes, we were required to eat the skins. My sister hated this. So I played the bully. I told her, "If you eat the potato skins, hair will grow under your arms." She screamed, she cried, she protested. She said, "That's not true." And I said, "It is. Eat 'em." I never proved it. I didn't need to. I spoke with confidence and authority. And because she didn't know how to challenge the claim, the presumption, the statement itself created pressure. The argument took place inside that presumption instead of questioning whether the presumption was actually real. That is the power of presumption. The IRS works the same way. The letter speaks with confidence. It assumes something is true. And if you respond inside that presumption, whether by arguing, denying, or explaining, you have already accepted the framework. Once you see this, you stop reacting to tone. You stop mistaking authority for proof. And you start understanding why order matters more than words. That is why we are moving carefully. And as always, may truth reign supreme.